All of that goes into that. A lot of people don't think about that because payroll taxes will get you in jail. Okay.
Well, you saying that, and there has been a time where I had thought about all the taxes that have to be paid on not just payroll, but all the money that is being made that I know I'm not making because I'm paying it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi, I'm Michele.
I'm Karamel.
Listen, I'm laughing because something has come up, and I think it's something that we haven't talked about before. In all of our talks and doing, we have not talked about payroll being a monster. Have we talked
This is
about
the
that?
first time we've talked about payroll on CEO Chronicles.
I believe so. We
Okay.
talk about it all the time behind the scenes when we do our
Sure.
one-on-one talks, but we have not talked about payroll on the show. And I wanted to talk about it because I have payroll.
So do I.
And so, a lot of times you don't think about that. Nobody talks about payroll. That's kind of like that's your number one bill. Did you know that that's the number
Well,
one bill?
it is the largest expense of most business owners' business when they start.
Expense sounds nice. It is a freaking bill.
Well, you're saying that, and then I always think that when we often have said, I mean, I know we haven't talked about it on here, but we often have said that people rely on that check that we provide for them to feed their
Heck yeah.
families, to take
Heck
care of them.
yeah.
And I know we call it a bill, and I'm just trying to be, and I know you feel
I
very,
told my people, I said, it's my number one bill. And see, I pay all my bills. So in my mind, if you're a bill, you're important. So if it's an expense, I probably can move that to another column and roll it. But a bill, I got to pay. And so I tell them, I said, you guys are my number one bill. And I take it serious. I take payroll very serious because, like we said, people are depending on that. And it freaked me out when I thought about it. That because see, when you work for a company or you work for somebody, when you're an employee, you just assume that the people gonna pay you. Well, when you become the employer and you're the one that people are assuming, do you know I get paid a lump sum once a month from the carrier that I'm with? They give me a
sure.
lump sum settlement. Okay, out of that lump sum, I've got to make two payrolls out of it, which means that I'm holding some money. These people are coming to work every day. They're coming and they're trusting that after they've worked in the hole for me, I'm going to have their pay.
They
And
do.
I'm thinking, that's some trust. Do you know how you got to trust somebody? Think about it. Would you trust somebody to hold $3,500 for you and that they're going to give it back to you?
And I saw this report, and it was talking about how entrepreneurship are the only people who will work 80 hours to work for themselves instead of 40 hours to work for somebody else.
Who are willing, who look, I think it was you when you told me, you said who will work 80 hours to avoid working a 40-hour job.
That is correct. We will work 80 hours to avoid working a 40-hour job. But to this point, we're 80% of that. We are actually, all those 80 hours is to make sure payroll happens and that we're able to live a life. And I wonder at what stage, as you're making payroll, does it become an expense that doesn't need to happen if you can do it on your own and not have that type of stress?
But see, that's the hard part.
Yeah.
In order to grow, in order to grow, you have to understand you're going to have somebody else with you. You're going to have some type of payroll, whether it's 1099 or W2. You're going to have to pay somebody else to assist you because one can only produce so much. You're going to have, in order to grow and to multiply, if one person can produce 50, two people can produce what can
Well,
purposely.
the numbers, of course, extrapolate, and you can move them over, and they double and triple, and I think I didn't have payroll when I started my business. I started as a solopreneur, and I think there's a statistic out there how many businesses, small businesses, are solopreneurs who are not.
Most small businesses are solopreneurs, even though they LLC, corporation, whatever. Only a very small few of small businesses employ people. Very
Mhm,
small number employ.
mhm.
And so, matter of fact, Let me see if we can find that answer. How many small businesses have employees? So I think that's a big deal because,
Well, what I look at when I'm thinking about having to employ somebody, I need it to be directly related to the revenue that's coming in. And if it's not directly related to the revenue coming in, then that person doesn't need to be employed. I had to make a very hard decision earlier this year. I had an employee and I was paying her quite a bit. She was a big line item for me. I mean, meeting that payroll was difficult. And I finally had to come to the hard decision that she wasn't worth her job, and what she was doing wasn't worth what I was getting back in ROI, return on investment. And payroll is an ROI statistic or an ROI expense. It's directly related to expenses. It's hard to have somebody on payroll, and they're usually the first to go when it is not related to that actual expense for, or getting the money in or having sales. Does that make sense?
Exactly. And look, our assistant says that roughly 18% of small businesses are employer firms. 82% of small businesses are non-employer firms.
Mhm.
And they said that the breakdown of size, we can pull by the breakdown of size. Let's see, because a small business can be defined as having 500 or less. I said a small business got 500 employees. That's crazy.
That was the statistic that we heard from when we were in 10,000 Businesses with Goldman Sachs.
Right.
And they
According
were
to
talking about that.
U.S. Small Business Administration, there are 34.75 million small businesses in the U.S. defined as firms with fewer than 500 employers.
Mhm.
And of those, 81.9% are non-employer firms, and then 18 are the ones. And so 49% have 1 to 4 employees.
Mhm.
27 have 5 to 19, 8 have 20 to 99, and 1% have 100 to 99.
Well, which
So
one of those statistics do, like, in terms of what even small business even is, how you determine that? And that payroll actually comes at a time when it's critical for you to actually move and grow that needle towards that. Okay, I can't multiply my hands. I only have so many things that I can do. So if I'm going to go ahead and move this needle for profitability and making more money, then it's going to require for me to have somebody in. Now, if you're comfortable at the level where the money is coming in and it's decent enough that this is enough for you, $2,000, $4,000, $5,000 in your hand, and that does what it needs to do, then you might have a business that your payroll, you don't really need it. But
But see, you got to determine what you're trying to do, because I'm looking here and it says these are the ranges that payroll typically falls in. So if you're a service-based business like me, 30 to 50% of your revenue is payroll.
Mhm.
30 to, and that is so true every year. If I make 100,000, 50,000 is payroll. I remember one year it was almost $1 million, and half of that, $500,000 was in payroll. Retail is 20 to 30%, restaurants 25 to 35%. So home services like HVAC and plumbing, 25 to 40%. So that payroll is a monster, and it happens every week. I remember when I first started, I was doing payroll weekly. And so one thing I found when you do payroll weekly, no, it wasn't weekly. I was doing it bi-weekly.
Mhm.
When you do it bi-weekly, they get a third paycheck 1 month. So every 3 months, they'll get a third paycheck. Say what now? So
Did you move your payroll to twice a month now?
baby, listen, hurry up, quick, fast, in a hurry. Because like I told you, I get a settlement once a month. So out of that, I got to keep 2 payrolls. Well, some months I had to keep 3 payrolls. Well, guess what? The settlement check didn't change. It was gonna be about the same. And so I got to get so when we had the extra payroll, that meant I didn't get a check that month. I was like,
we're laughing about that, but the critical mass in someone having payroll, it can be quite, it could be a lot. And that
see, you don't
when
ever
that check,
think about that. You don't see, people don't, when you're an employee, because I remember being on the side when Garner was getting a paycheck. That's my husband. I knew the months he was gonna get that extra check, and I'd be like, "Oh snap! It's an extra check this month!" Woo woo! And we were all excited. But when you're the one paying that extra check, you're like, "What now?"
one of the things that you can do as a small business or someone who's thinking about payroll is saving up enough money where it's a separate pot when it's time to actually pay your employees. I think a lot of us will say,
that sounds good, but that crap don't happen. No extra
well,
pot. That's typically how you want it to be, but
I
Where are we?
understand that, but I think if I had anything to tell someone who was thinking about hiring their first employee, that would be my first conversation with them, is that when you absolutely have to have this employee in order for you to make the needle move in this moment and in this season. A lot of folks in small business will add an employee before they're actually needed. And
That
by
and that's true. That is so true, because sometimes you're like, I remember we have the concept of work on your business, not in your business. Well, if
sure.
I'm working on the business, that means I got to have somebody working in the business. And so I'll have somebody and they'll be working, but then you got to make sure, and you said it perfect, they got to be tied to the revenue. Are we making money, or is what they are doing directly tied to revenue?
Mhm.
Now, a flip side of that, if I am the revenue producer, are they taking things off of my plate that will
That I
allow
can look
me to
at.
be more
That is
productive?
correct.
So
And
one or the other, they've got to take stuff off of my plate so I can be more productive, or they got to be a revenue
And
generator.
that was one of the biggest kickers when the return on investment for, because I at one point I had multiple employees. You know, we had a staff of 25, and I was paying expenses for 23 of them, and 2 of them were on payroll. And it was a hell of a time juggling in months that were lean on how I was going to make sure I can make payroll and continue to pay myself and pay the things that I needed to pay around the house whenever I needed to do so. And that critical mass came to a head when I said, listen, there's more money going out than coming in for me to make and pay all the things. So I had to make a very hard decision that, hey, our revenue goal is X. At that time, we had a revenue goal of $44,000 in the month. I said, this month, we've got to make $44,000 for me to make your paycheck a reality to move on. And I remember very clearly, so what can we do? I said it as a team to get this revenue that we need to get in order for me to keep you on. I want you to know that this is going to happen. And with a small business like me, where I am a small operator, you know, big revenue, but big bills. We went through that month, we strategized, we put a plan together. By the time it was time to make the money, we did not make the 44,000. I think we were short to the tune of around 28,000. That was a heck of a difference. You're talking about $16,000 difference. Well, guess what? I had to go ahead and let that employee go. And so when I did that, I was able to maintain on that $28,000 until it fluctuated back up. But at this point, I've now revolutionized and made more
Automated. Mm-hmm.
efficient what I was doing, and therefore could not step in to have that employee who was a nice to have, but not a need to have.
And
That
that's
was
the point right there. And
Mhm.
I realized I had a crucial point where I realized we were struggling to reach these goals, and I
Mhm.
was killing myself trying to reach the goal. When I looked at the numbers, I was killing myself to reach the goal to make payroll.
Mm.
Literally, the money that I made, that was the extra money that I was killing myself to reach the goal or exceed the goal, turned out to be exactly the amount of payroll. So
Mhm.
I thought to myself, I said, okay, this is insanity here. I'm working harder to pay other people than they are working to get paid. That
Mm.
that let me say it again. I'm working harder for people to get paid than they're working harder to get paid.
Ooh, and so therein lies another critical mass when you know your numbers so well that you can tell somebody you are related to how this business gets paid. And while I would love to be able to keep you, if I can't justify keeping you when you are not making the money in order to get you paid, the end.
5 signs you're ready to hire an employee. You can afford the total cost. When you get a W-2 employee, so let's say a $40,000 salary, what it actually costs 50 to 55,000. You got payroll
That's right.
taxes, workers comp, training time, PTO, software access,
Yep.
increased admin time. All of that goes into that. A lot of people don't think about that because payroll taxes will get you in jail. Okay.
Well, you saying that, and there has been a time where I had thought about all the taxes that have to be paid on not just payroll, but all the money that is being made that I know I'm not making because I'm paying it in payroll, right? And so you have to have that extra cash. I was just saying that to you, Michelle, when we were talking about it. It sounded good, but you've got to have a pot of money set aside and ready to spend on that employee and that payroll, because without it, thinking about it from the perspective of having a set amount of income, if they haven't expanded that income at least 25%, it may not be worth investing in that employee.
It sounds good. And I really would love to have a pot of money. I really would love to have a pot of money. I just will say that you're turning down money or missing opportunities. That's
Because
number
you haven't
two.
hired somebody. Okay.
You are ready to hire when you are bottlenecked. You might notice you can't call back leads fast enough. Customer service is slipping. You're staying up late doing tasks someone else could really be doing,
Mhm.
and you're losing revenue because you can't keep up. That's when you know you're ready to hire somebody, because you'll
Mhm.
make more money because you can do more. You have a repeatable process. That's my girl. When you talk about process, Karamel is the queen of process. Someone else can easy follow. That's if you've created scripts, templates, a clear workflow,
Well,
flow, a
standard
job.
operating procedures is what we're talking about. When you
It-
have an operating procedure that you know that this is how it gets done, you can pass that on to somebody. It is time for you to pass that on to somebody.
And it's important to start doing that from the beginning. When you are doing something, go ahead and tape video yourself. What's that Loom?
It's
You can
called
use.
Loom. Well, what I will say what's interesting to me is when I have my standard operating procedure and can replicate myself. There are times where I could say, well, if this is an operation that only happens X, Y, and Z, it's repeatable, but I repeat it quarterly. Well, that may not be a reason why I would hire somebody. You hire somebody for those processes that are daily, that tasks that you
Sure.
have to happen that are critical for the running of and making money in your business.
Now, hiring will make you more money, not just give you help. We talked about
Oh,
that. It's tied directly to revenue.
that's
Ask
correct.
this question: will hiring this person help me produce at least 3 times their salary?
Well, that's the
What?
point, right?
What?
It's a 25% extra money on the revenue that you're already making. Plus, they need to be worth 3 times what you're paying them in order for it to be, I guess, a worthy type of investment. And if they have not done that, well, then that is not where you need to be. I looked at that
Simple
last.
math. Simple
Mhm,
math. If
mhm.
it's yes, hire them. If it's no, wait. Now, 3 times. If the revenue 40,000, if we say we're going to give them 40,000, will they produce 120K in revenue? Okay, a CSR can increase retention. If what they're doing is it going to directly impact, we just talked about that, directly impact revenue. So that's what we're going to look at. And the last thing, number 5, your lifestyle can't sustain the current workload.
Mm,
Hiring is not just about revenue, it's about survival.
mhm.
You're burned out, you're working nights, weekends, your family don't ever see you, quality is slipping, your family is feeling the strain. You're doing $15 tasks. You can pay somebody $15 when you should be doing $500 tasks. They need to.
100%.
That is
I've
so
said this
important.
more than once that if my hour is worth $1,500, then why in the world would I be spend any time doing things that are worth $15 an hour? That doesn't make any sense at
We
all.
always say, don't use a Porsche to take the trash out.
Now, I will say this. I am a proponent in understanding the inner workings of your business. That means I may not do the task, but I know the task has to be done and I know the task is being done right. I just had an issue earlier where, we missed some money yesterday because something didn't happen and I didn't know it was supposed to happen because I'm being tasked to do the job right now as my employee is going out on vacation. Well, that was a critical point for me where, hey, wait a minute. If this doesn't happen, people don't show up and I can't make the money. What are we talking about right now? We
But
can't
see,
have.
that's when you find something out right there. That's when you find out when somebody takes off. That's when you find out. Employees being off is when you find out for real what's going on in your
That's right.
business. And that's why corporations make people take mandatory vacation. That is how you find. If you got somebody there, oh, I can't have them be off because if they off, then the world will fall apart. They need to be off because that world they rotating might not be rotating the way you want it to rotate.
Well, I'll say this, that was a big deal for me to recognize. We had already set up all the looms to all the repeatable processes, and I was looking at it, and it was one bottleneck. And then I was like, "Well, am I supposed to do this?" And when I asked her, she was like, "Yeah, I forgot to put that in the loom." Well, that's a bottleneck. And that's a
Mhm.
critical situation for me. Now, granted, it's a new process, and we just implemented it right before she was leaving, so it was still brand new in the works. It just what you find out is you are you are instrumental and critical to how the running of your business will affect that bottom line revenue. And that at the end of the day, you, or I should say top line revenue, it is the responsibility of you to make sure that those SOPs are in place, right? That's your
So,
responsibility.
so here's something, some red flags when you're not ready. Because like you said, you got to a point where you say, okay, I'm gonna hire somebody, and it's like I have this pot of money and all this kind of stuff. Okay, you need an employee to save you financially. You drown in, and you feel like bringing in the employee is gonna do something. That ain't it. You can't explain what success looks like in that role. You can't explain, if I bring this person on, how will I know if they're doing it right, or we're winning, or what's going on? You think any warm body will help? Just having somebody in there is going to help. That means we can keep the store open because I got somebody at the counter. Well, if they come in and they on their phone, or they don't know how to talk to people, that's not going to help. You plan to hire someone and figure it out later. I'll just get them in here and we'll just see what they're going to do when they come in. That ain't going to work. You want to hire to fix problems you haven't defined. Revenue
is vanity. Profits are sanity. That's something that I'm living by right now. Revenue is vanity. Profit is sanity. The difference between revenue, top line revenue, and profitability, and that profit that you keep, is everything. And if you cannot see the difference between your revenue numbers and your profit numbers, then you're losing the battle.
And when she keeps saying top line revenue, back in the day when they used to write it down, revenue was literally on the top line.
And then you subtracted everything else out from that.
Out of that, and you get your profit, the bottom line.
The bottom line.
Remember, bottom line, top line. It literally was written down.
Well, I like that we say that, because we don't say it enough, in my opinion, these days, because I get a lot of gurus. You'll see them on the internet talking about all this money that they're making. I made 800,000. I make 5,000. I make 10,000 a month. They say all of these things, but without recognizing that they have expenses with that. So while they may have brought in 7 figures, $1 million, that does not necessarily mean that we were profitable $1 million. It couldn't be.
I remember being in the trucking business. Trucking business has astronomical numbers. We could talk about revenues like $5-10 million. What? $10 million? Oh my goodness. We lost money. I ran a $5-10 million business. We lost money. Matter of fact, we just finished paying off some of the debt from the trucking business. You know what I'm saying? And that was 10-15 years ago. That's crazy. But the CEO formula for hiring, so that you know this: hire when the cost of not hiring is greater than the cost of hiring. That's how you know. If not hiring costs you revenue, it can cost you customers, quality, your health, your time. I'm on my health. Oh my goodness. My health was so bad. 25 was not a very good year for me in the business, but it was a good year for me personally, because I got some things corrected. After running hard for 6 years, I came into my 7th year, and I had to stop and had to realize, hey, I am older. When I started the business 7 years ago, I was 45. There's a difference between 45 and 52. I look the same. I'm gonna be honest. If you look at pictures of me, I look very similar to what I look like at 45, but I am not the same. My body was not the same. I was not performing the same. And so I had to shut down. I had to get a surgery. I had to have a surgery. I had to be off work. That's when I found out a lot about my business. My business did not run the best when I was out. They were not able to continue the goals. So I had to I've had to take this year and reflect and decide, okay, 2026, how do I want my business to show up? How do I want it to look? And so that's what I'm having to do. I'm having to look at, how do I want my business to show up? Who do I want to hire? Who do I want on my bus? How many people do I need on the bus with me? I've had a team as big as 10. I've had 2 sales leaders and a team and 2 offices and all of that great and wonderful. Lots of money was made, but no profit. A lot of revenue, but no profit. You understand? So now I am small, very small right now, and more profit is being made. And so now I'm having to make a decision, How do I want to show up? So I sat down and I was thinking about that. I'm using my friend ChatGPT. I saw somebody say, if you only using ChatGPT, you're not using AI to the fullest. Let me do what I'm doing. I'm using something. I'm doing something, but I'm using a lot. And I use other AI too. But in that, I'm having that conversation of what I want it to look like. And payroll is a large part of that. How can I get the least amount of payroll? Because remember, payroll can be 30 to 50%. How
Yeah.
can I lean? I'm leaning more on the 50. How do I get to that 30% payroll and get what I need?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
And being honest with your team about the goals that have to be met in order for them to be sustainable is a big deal as well. I was taught, I was in that mastermind with a bunch of those business owners, and I remember saying that specifically. And I remember I've always been very open about the numbers and the revenue that we're making in this business. You have to be. It's pretty public facing. If you had 10 people give you $2,000, that's $20,000 of revenue. But I've always been very clear in saying that while it seems like that top line revenue, that 20,000 is great and everything looks awesome at that level, once I've given you all your money and the tax man all his money, what do you think that I have left? So there is a fine line between understanding what money you need to bring in top line and how you work out the figures on what that ROI will be on it.
And employers and employees look at it very differently. I remember when I was working in corporate America at the bank, I consider that my corporate America was the bank. It was I had to dress, it was corporate.
Sure.
And we had all the layers and all the meetings and check and profitability, check. So I remember when they sent out a sheet, because I made a decent salary, but of course I thought it could be more. They sent out a sheet and they said your total benefits package, and they included everything on it. They included our benefits, they included what they pay us, they included our time off, they included all this stuff. And it gave a bigger picture that whereas I was making 70, 80,000, how with bonuses and everything is now 150,000 total and 125,000 total investment that they have. I was like, what? Because they paid full insurance. Whoa. Well, now that I'm a business owner, I understand.
Fully understand.
See, I have an insurance bill. We only have 5 people on our insurance. It's $3,200 a month. For just insurance, for health insurance, just health insurance. And yeah, they pay a little piece of that, but guess what? I pay the bulk of it.
Which again goes back to while we're talking about the payroll, that's our biggest expense. But then when you have other expenses that are closely behind that,
exactly. So I'll give you a perfect example. I'm very small. I got 4 or 5 people on the payroll right now. Payroll is 14,000 just for the payroll. You add 3,200 on there just for your health insurance. I'm not talking about I'm not talking about your 401k that I got all for 401k, disability, life insurance, all that kind of stuff that I pay a portion of. That bill is $544 for your supplemental benefits, and then your I match 401k, I think 3 to 4%. I match that. So you see what I'm saying? So we up to 20,000.
Just for the employees.
20,000. We ain't made $1 yet.
They haven't made $1 yet. There's no profit right now. You got fixed expenses. You got your rent.
The rent, utilities that we're gonna throw another $1,500 on top of that.
Right.
See what I'm saying? So now we at 21.5 before we did anything.
Yep.
We ain't sold a policy yet.
Yep.
So that's when I get people to try to understand. Then I got just bills.
Well, the numbers are very.
We got a market. I got a market for you. Okay,
so
we
the numbers
are that.
The numbers are startling on the amount of money that has to be generated for a business to run, even in small business. Doesn't matter what we're talking about.
And when we don't sell anything, I still have those expenses.
You still have to pay those bills.
You out sick, you a whole month.
But here's the thing, the light on the other side of that is that when you are, there is some light, Michelle. You have to give them the light. The light on the other side of that is we are changing lives. And when the times are bad, we understand that we can get past them. And the reason why we continue to work the 80 hours a week is because we are doing everything we can because we feel good in our businesses and how it needs to run and how we feel the future is coming and that it's worth every heartache. Because
I will say this, the light.
I want to say this last thing. I don't know how happy I would be if I had to go back and work for somebody else. That's how I know entrepreneurship is for me. That I don't know if I would be, I know I could do it. Of course, I could go back and work for somebody and get paid, but the money that they would pay me would not be commensurate for what I think my time and energy is worth. And that
I ain't gonna say all that because there is a price that you could pay me and I go back and work for it. I don't believe
believe it. I don't believe it.
I don't lie. I know me very well. So I'm just gonna be honest.
What
But
is that
I don't want,
number?
I don't want to do that, but I will leave you with this. I will say that employees and employers and having what I appreciate and the light for me at the end of the tunnel is the benefit that I provide to somebody else by having my business, how they've been able to benefit from my business as well. I've had people be able to purchase homes, purchase cars. I'm so proud of the situation. Have VA, my VA has been able to purchase a car. That is huge. I've had people be able to purchase the dream cars, be able to purchase homes by working with me, put children through college by working with me at the agency. So that is my light, that what we're doing here, the people are able to have a real livelihood and it be able to
And
exist,
so
support families.
So, and with
So
all
that
the
is the light.
stress, so can you. Because if it gotten so bad that you could not sustain, you wouldn't be in business anymore. And I think that that's another part that people don't actually think about. That I've been in business for 7 whole years, almost 8
Yes,
years.
we're almost 8 years. In March, will be 8 years. And I am just floored by what we've done. But I'm looking for better things. I'm looking for more bottom line revenue,
Yep,
bottom line
profit. We're looking for
profit.
some profit.
Tired of top line revenue. I want some bottom line profit. And having employees is how we're going to get there. But it's
Yes.
got to be the right employees in the right seats on the bus. Best friend, I love you. I think this has been a great show. I've enjoyed it.
Love you too.
Bye, 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 bye.